Perfect, Anna. Thank you very much. As the title suggested, we are moving very fast to Or from Google with her presentation. The floor.
Great. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me to this session, Decoding Cloud Security, Top Lessons Learned from the Mistakes that our customers make. So quick introduction, my name is Brokman. I'm a cybersecurity expert at the Google Cloud Security Professional Services team. I specialize obviously in cloud security, in data protection and endpoint security. Very excited to be with you here today. So throughout my career in Google security, both me and my team in PSO EMEA, PSO security, we have conducted dozens, if not hundreds, of cloud security posture reviews for our various customers. And when I say various customers, I mean pretty much everyone. We've been evaluating healthcare services, major telecom companies, vehicle manufacturers, banks, public sector, private sector, nations across multiple geolocations. We've been evaluating everyone pretty much. But the more evaluations I conducted, the more I was shocked to realize that apparently many organizations and many customers fall prey to the exact same repetitive mistakes. So I've created this presentation to talk about the real-life customer stories, customer mistakes that we've been seeing, obviously anonymized because I don't want anyone to sue me, across 3 different domains. So I'll be talking about the most common cloud security mistakes and their lessons learned across the governance space, technical domain, and people domain. So without further ado, let's drill down to the governance space. Lesson learned number 1. Buying tools cannot compensate for the lack of well-defined processes, and automation cannot address undefined or non-existing processes. Now, this may sound trivial to you, but we see it all the time for our customer. Here's what happened to this bank, a German bank that is approaching my team, and the CISO is telling us the following message. We're having compliance and misconfiguration problems. We're on the process of buying a new CNAPP tool, Cloud Native Application Protection Platform, to help mitigate those, identify posture misconfiguration, and suggest automatic fixes. Can you help us improve our security posture by setting up the correct CNAPP rules, alerts, architecture, etc.? Now, usually when my team and I, when we receive such a request, we do 2 things. The first thing we do is we snoop around the customer's environment. We check their IAM, we check their network security, we check their permissions, their bucket. Basically, we try to leave no stone unturned. Second thing we do is we run a series of interviews. We talk to the DevOps team, we talk to the developers, the security team, the infra team, etc. And the more we looked into their environment, the more anomalies we soon realized. We saw open SSH ports at some projects. We saw open firewalls under certain networks. We saw public IP addresses on some buckets. And the more we looked into it, the clearer it became to us that these were not the standard bank policies. These were all the anomalies, the exception policies. But there were so many of these. So we asked the CISO and the teams, how can it be that your organization has so many anomalies? And basically their response was this. And so we realized that their actual problem was not the lack of a CNAPP solution, but actually an undefined security exception process where teams can work around and circumvent security policies and configure exceptions per their need, lack of definition and enforcement of basic protocols like how should an exception request be made, who approves it, based on what, how is this documented, and probably the most important part, when will this exception ever be revisited and revoked? So the bottom line here is just because you fit as a solution, just because purchasing a CNAPP tool could fit as a possible solution, doesn't mean this is the right solution. The customer tried to tackle the absence of security processes and protocols, in this case, the security exception process, by applying a quick and rather expensive bandage, which is buying a CNAP tool. But there is no replacement of doing that ground-up work of defining the correct process. Lesson learned number 2. Security is everyone's responsibility, can never become security is no one's responsibility. And this time we have a CISO who is contacting our team after they had a breach at the bank, another bank, by the way. And they're telling us, she's saying to us this beautiful sentence, in my bank, security is everyone's responsibility. Now, this is a cute statement. I really think that security should be in everyone's hearts and minds. However, when underneath this statement hides missing accountability and missing ownership of core security protocols, that's where things get tricky. And this is exactly what happened to this bank. So this is what happened to them. First, the security team configured an org policy to disable the creation of publicly accessible buckets. That's great. Then the landing zone administration team deactivated this policy for internal debug purposes, and obviously they forgot to re-enable it. The application team used a Terraform code they found online. It was super long, it was super boring, they never read through it, and they deployed it. That code deployed a publicly accessible bucket which contained sensitive customer data. Our CNAP tool, Security Command Center, did alert, saying you have a publicly accessible bucket with sensitive information in there. However, this is where things get really bad. The SecOps team reviewed the alert and assumed that the application team was on top of it, so no one did anything about it except for a group of hackers who stumbled upon that information, and obviously they didn't keep it to themselves. So bottom line, yes, security should be in everyone's focus. However, delegating security does not mean delegating ownership, accountability, and not monitoring it. You have to have clear ownership of security core protocols. 2 most common technical mistakes. Lesson learned number 1. Enhance your CI/CD control, implementing static and dynamic application security testing, image signing, and more, but also enforce it. That's the part where most customers get wrong. So once upon a time, there was a European food and consumers company, and they're telling us they don't think their CI/CD pipeline is secure. And what happens is basically the usual drift, right? So the landing zone team builds a secure landing zone with guardrails and org policies, but then they hand responsibility to the application team, and the application team, due to their natural nature, right? They deviate from the security policies, and the CI/CD pipeline becomes a risk with unsigned binaries, untrusted images, unapproved code that gets committed. So how to avoid that? 5 steps. Define the pipeline, enforce it, revisit it, adjust it, and do over repeat. And you can do it basically on many tips, but a couple of quick tips, obviously incorporating the correct testing mechanism, requiring code commits to be signed, enforcing multi-factor authentication, and more. Last technical lesson learned. Especially in the cloud, identity is the new perimeter. And we've been hearing that all the time, but to be honest, we see that often with our customers. Usually customers who have been on-prem for a long period of time, and suddenly they're in a rush to migrate to the cloud. So they're migrating to the cloud, but they're not shifting their focus to the specific cloud attack vectors. So they're migrating their security from on-prem to the cloud as is. They're lacking clear strategy and understanding of new cloud-specific attack vectors, and they're doing it pretty much all around, but for example, they're not securing enough the identity properly, controlling API calls, they're focusing on next-gen network firewall, but completely neglecting the cloud firewall, etc. Last one, for the people domain. And this is the number one most common mistakes that I've been seeing for probably more than 20 different various customers I've been analyzing. And lesson learned here is time to break your inter-team silos. When I was interviewing the DevOps team, the security team, the infra team, the application team, they don't like each other. They treat each other as a burden. Not only there's a disconnect, but they kind of look at each other as a burden, where security team feels like the developers, they're always playing catch up. And the developer teams look at the security team as some kind of a impediment, some kind of a punishment, some kind of a way of a team who deprives them from deploying fast quality type of code. So basically, these silos lead to friction, and these friction lead to security vulnerabilities. So number one tip here from my end is create a solution of trust and collaboration between the teams of your cloud environment. How? Different methods, obviously, but improve and incentivize teamwork. There are hackathons, there are security champion programs. Learn to know each other in various methods just to improve the collaboration. So in conclusion, I feel like many of these mistakes I've been saying are trivial, but maybe not that trivial because I do see many people taking a picture. So maybe they are partially trivial, but they repeat all the time. And the bottom line here is that in cybersecurity, there are no shortcuts. You can't avoid doing the ground fundamental work of building these well-defined security protocols, well-defined processes, enhancing and securing your CI/CD pipeline. But most importantly, you have to build that human connection in your organization to avoid those hiccups. So thank you so much for your time. Hope you liked it.